Hello and welcome to the latest video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. As we use we did use the international break to take stock. We're still using it because it's still going on. There's still matches to do. Last week we looked at the latest goals and assists imminent table. This week we've got even more stats to try and spot those under the radar gems and differentials as we look ahead to Fantasy Premier League Game Week 5 and try and pinpoint those under the radar gems. To do this, we obviously use those goals and assists imminent tables. We will show them again, but I do urge people to have a look at last week's video for that. I do apologise for being a tiny bit late. Someone changed the special code that I use to do the video. And it took me a little while to work out that it had been changed. So that would have been nice to know that in advance, but you never know. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some ultra low owned differentials, worst defences, with the captaincy in mind. There's talk of going against Haaland this week. I wonder how brave people will be nearer the deadline. We'll also look at Burnley and Luton players ahead of their double, and we'll reveal our Game Week 5 team thoughts and also take some live Q&A questions from yourselves at the end in the live chat. My name is Joe, and joining me to unearth some under the radar gems is Tom Freeman, Fantasy Football Scout's deputy editor. Tom, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks, Joe. Enjoyed the international break. It's been a little bit quieter at Scout, which is sometimes nice to take a step back and spend a little bit longer on your articles and such other things. But it'll be good to have the Premier League back, Game Week 5 on Saturday, which is what we're here for today.
Excellent. Let's welcome those who've joined us early in the live chat as well. Gee Whiz, Leo is good, 1, 2, 3. Nuisance, Robbo Orst, John Cahill, FPL Marshall, A Dawson, Ted Wilson, Typo 14, Ahmed, Lucas, Let's Talk Vinyl, J77 Lag, and many more. Thanks so much for joining us. Do remember to press that like button if you're enjoying your content that you are watching. Also, do remember to press subscribe if you're not already doing that. That means you can keep up to date with all our latest content throughout the season, so you don't miss out. Well, let's have a look at Burnley and Luton, and let's see if there are any of their assets to get. No, there we go. There aren't any. My little joke. Ho, ho, ho. What you will find over the next 3 weeks is that they're basically like vintage 80s Barcelona or something like that. And their assets will grow and grow as more content comes out and more people look at them. But they're basically both quite pants. They're promoted sides. Both of their sets of players are okay. They're better. But having said that, they do have a double game week and their assets are quite cheap. And depending on the way your team is set up, you might better get some of their players. So we are highlighting them. And I already own a Burnley player, Beckenbauer, in my defence. I don't think I'll field him during the double, but you never know. But the Luton, they've got a more favourable double game week. So it is possible to take a chance on one or two of their players, I think. Okay, Tom, let's have a look at their stats. These are the best ones. Okay. I mean, just before we look at these, I mean, are you considering getting any Luton or Burnley players in?
I prefer Luton players because of the fixtures, not only in the double game week 7, but the ones that precede it as well. They play Fulham and Wolves. They feel a little bit more stable when I watch them as well. I've seen a bit of Burnley this year, and I think they probably need to be a bit more pragmatic. They've lost all 3 at home as well. I think 11-3 aggregate score.
Yep.
They look okay when they got the ball, but they're just way too open at the back, a lot of gaps. So I think if I were to invest in a player from either side, it would definitely be a Luton one.
Yeah. I mean, let's say with me. I mean, I've got, say, for example, my team, we'll talk about our teams a bit later. I've got Evan Ferguson. He could be injured. He could be injured for a while. Him to Morris is just fairly simple, easy move if he is unavailable for Manchester United and Bournemouth. But if he is available for that, I'll wait. I don't want Luton and Burnley players hanging around for too long in my team. But nevertheless, let's look at the stats. So I've sorted this by minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty. Bearing in mind Morris is on penalties, so that's why he's a bit lower here. So Panzu costs 4.9. His minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, is a goal involvement every 148 minutes. So that's pretty bad, and that's the best. And his expected goal involvement delta. So he's underperforming marginally. So he could have got something more. Ross Barkley, remember him? Newly orange Ross Barkley has managed 4 points on, of course, his 2 starts. That's bad. His minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, goal involvement every 270 minutes. That's really bad. No assists. He's created 4 chances, though, so you never know. And he's marginally underperforming by half a goal involvement. Then you got Morris, who's overperforming slightly in terms of non-penalty. Expected goal involvement, including his penalty, he's marginally overperforming, only marginally. So he's pretty much on course. But his minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, so without penalties, is every 284 minutes. That's really bad. Nevertheless, he does have 15 FPL points. He does have a goal. And he started all 3 of their matches. Remember, obviously they've got double game week, so they're all playing 3 times. And then you've got Foster at Burnley. So if you're thinking, ooh, I'll get Morris in, might as well go for Foster as well. 5 million. He's had 2 goals, 15 points. Once again, his minutes per expected goal involvement every non-penalties every 284 minutes. So on a par with Morris. But he's margin overperforming by a whole goal. Has created a couple of chances. So that's the thread, really. They're all quite bad as FPL assets, but the narrative will make them better as the double game week approaches, with Burnley facing Newcastle, which is tough, and then Luton, which is easy, and Luton facing Everton, easy, and Burnley, easy. So you just chucking a needle in a haystack here, really, and hoping you're going to get some points, or the needle's going to come out with points in this bizarre mixed metaphor I've just invented. But yeah, I mean, any of those players entice you? Any of the other players that haven't flagged up on this list?
Well, I think you've highlighted the right ones there, because fitting in midfielders now is very difficult given the wealth of options. So I don't think anybody's going to be considering any midfielders from these teams. Nah. So it is the forward slot which people might have available. And a lot of people own Jackson, and it feels like a lot of people are selling him now. But if he doesn't perform against Bournemouth at the weekend, even more people are going to be selling him. Yeah. So that could be a spot. You've got Evan Ferguson, somebody like that. People might be looking to switch that. So, and I think Morris is the one out of those 2. I think when you talk about these teams who aren't going to create loads of chances, I think penalties is like a really big thing for them. And I think that's what Morris has got. I think he's averaging 3 shots per game so far, right, across his 3 matches, which is okay, which is fine. I think Luton looked okay against West Ham in their last match on the Friday night game before the international break. I think they've got a good atmosphere at Kenilworth Road. I think they'll make it quite tricky for some teams going there, and it's just the lead-up fixtures. If you're going to move now, it's got to be Morris. Fulham and Wolves preceding the double, which is better as well. Foster, tricky fixtures. Plays United and Chelsea either side of that double, and even the double I don't think is that appealing, going to Newcastle with one of the fixtures.
No, it's not. I mean, I've also listed Calacio, Del Croy, Kabore, Giles in this list. Once again, I mean, these are really bad. These are really bad FPL picks. These are the kinds of players that you get on Kabore on your bench. But the narrative will increase that they're amazing assets. But they're not. But they could prove me wrong.
Well, Kabore didn't start the last game. He was really surprisingly benched, and we haven't quite got to the bottom of why that was, because I think he looked pretty good in the first couple of games that he played for them, but he was benched. So even if you own him, you're going to need to monitor that situation now. Yeah. I actually like, if you're going to go for a defender, and it would be a Luton defender, I prefer Giles. He's a bit more expensive. But if you look at the underlying numbers from the first few games, I don't think any defender in the whole of the Premier League has put in more successful crosses than him. It's Luton's game plan. It's get it out to the wing backs. It's whip it into the box for the two strikers.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm not saying Giles is a fantastic option, but if you do want to go there and you want to play on that additional fixture that they've got, he's probably where I'd be looking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, so for example, Morris will be in demand, but the narrative will actually be say they're going to captain him over someone like Haaland, and I personally won't do that. But I do think it's okay to own one of them and just go for a punt, especially the way I'm set up. My second striker until I wildcard is a sort of a floating role where I'm just sort of using that to for this exact moment, really. Evan Ferguson pretends he's fit. If he is fit, in game week 7 he plays Villa, and which is a tough fixture. So it's an easy move for me. And others may have Pedro, for example. Others may get bored of Jackson not scoring. And that's a good move as well. Others may want to move another one of their strikers on. So it's very convenient for us all there. J77 Lag in the live chat's also pointing out that it's normally keepers who score large in double game weeks. That is true. I can remember that. Even if you're conceding, if they can pick up those save points, I mean, there's going to be a lot of shots fired at Burnley, for example. So whoever's in goal there, it's not bad.
I don't think you would want to be starting them week in, week out. But it's if you've got two keepers there. Yeah. I say that with Luton, I wouldn't mind playing them in the next few fixtures, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, there's such a lack of clean sheets around at the moment, and why not go for it? Yeah. But yeah, I think it's Kaminsky at Luton and Trafford at Burnley, isn't it? So that's not a bad shout at all, to be honest. No. Providing you can maybe bench them in and around it.
Definitely. I mean, as you said, lack of clean sheets as well. A lot of people with Pickford, obviously. I don't think it's too cruel to say to Everton that Luton and Burnley are probably better than Everton. So I would argue you could go for a punt for them in game week 7. So double game week 7 has a marginal interest, but do temper the thrill and expectations. And if you start seeing posts saying they're going to captain Ross Barkley or something like that, then
it just reminds you of Josh King and Dennis at Watford, doesn't it? And those, and we've got Haaland at Molineux that week in game week 7. So I can't. Some people might go for it, but I don't see it picking up as much traction as the one I previously mentioned did, when it seemed like everybody, certainly on Twitter and the socials, was punting on a Watford player for a striker for captaincy. And then you look back and think, well, why did I do that?
Okay. Well, let's move on to another table I've got of ultra differentials. So last week we looked at sort of goals imminent, assists imminent, and irrespective of ownership, just those who had strong underlying stats but had yet to sort of rack up the goals and assists so far at the beginning of the season, but had the potential to do so. And these are ultra differentials. These are sort of those tables, but with an ultra differential version there. And as you can see, all of these, many of these names here are laughable. But if I just go back to the Luton and Burnley thing, in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, Panzer's the best at 148 minutes. The likes of Morris, non-penalty, this is 284 minutes. And then if you look at the ultra differentials, while some people will laugh at them, all of them are better than Luton and Burnley's best player. So laugh away. But if those people laughing are starting to say, "Oh, I think Luton's attack's amazing," well, then you've got no right to laugh at David Brooks at Bournemouth, or Trossard at Arsenal, or Hwang at Wolves, because these guys are better. So let's have a look at these ultra differentials. So I have flagged up ones where I think there could be genuine interest, or at least they're sort of on the radar, put it that way. Yeah. And others on this list are good, but they're just not getting the minutes. So we've got Neil Maupay at top. He's moved to Brentford now. He's just not going to get the minutes. So it's almost irrelevant. But he did have this spell of Everton of missing the goal a lot, of shooting a lot and missing the goal. And this is why he's top here. So I haven't flagged him up as a must-buy. Trossard is next on the list now. He's not going to get the minutes. He's going to share minutes with Martinelli. He's probably going to replace Martinelli last 20 minutes of the game. He might get the odd start He's had 2 FPL points so far out of 4, 1 start. But nevertheless, when he is on the pitch, his minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 101 minutes, which is pretty good. Next 4 is Everton, Tottenham, Bournemouth and Man City. So a real mixed bag there. But I flagged him up there because say we get some news that Martinelli's injured, then Trossard will be locked in probably. And there we go. we provided the stats for you.
I'd absolutely love it if he was nailed because he's a player I really like. He's got a lot of assists since he moved to Arsenal, even last year off limited minutes. But it does feel like there was a route into that centre forward role, and could he play that false nine role? But you've got Jesus back now. Nketiah is doing very well playing for England. And so it feels like now he's just lost that. There's talk of him playing that left 8 role, but Havertz has been playing there, not playing very well, and Vieira's now pushing for a start there. So it probably is what you would say, Joe. It would probably take an injury to Martinelli to really make him become an option.
Okay, so we sort of park that thought because if he does become an option, he's a very good option according to stats. Brooks at Bournemouth. Now he's had 12 FPL points. This is classic for this show. Under the radar, no one's getting Brooks in. No one's talking about Brooks. The fixtures are mixed from an attacking point of view. Chelsea, that's okay. Arguably at home. From an attacking point of view, Brighton's defence, they're still shipping goals, could score there. Arsenal at home, that could be tough. And then you've got Everton. So not bad fixtures, I would say. Just at the 1 start, though, but 12 FPL points. If he can get the starts, it looks like he could be an option. And he's a classic player that people in the live chat will laugh at. But we've had this before with Wolves attackers, and they suddenly rack up the points. So Brooks, I think, is a good one for this.
He scored last night, didn't he, for Wales?
There we go. So, he's in form for club and country. Now, Bournemouth are one of those teams where I've got a bit of a mental block on this season. I've just discounted them, but
it's fixtures probably.
Yeah, it's just the fixtures. But I think they should be on the radar. Brooks and Solanke as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there wasn't this double game week coming up, and Evan Ferguson was injured, Solanke would be another I would be looking at in this sort of take a risk slot. Go safe everywhere else, but
game week 8, I think, which that table just covers the Everton fixture. Then I think they play Wolves after that, and I think that's a good little run. And Solanke, I think he's one of the better forwards in that kind of price category to own. And Brooks is the biggest differential probably out there. But it is about minutes with them. If he can get into that team, then he could offer a bit of value at 4.9.
Definitely. We've got Aya at Brentford and Hwang at Wolves. Once again, people probably won't go there. Hwang, worth mentioning, has only just that one. All of those I've just mentioned, they've all just had 1 start, but Hwang has had 13 FPL points. As we've said, Wolves attack. In certain fixtures, they are getting the points. Got Liverpool next, then Luton, then Man City and Villa. So not great fixtures, but there is that Luton fixture. So Hwang could be getting some points in game week 6 there. But the first player I've flagged up on this list is a 1-year Nottingham Forest. People have avoided Nottingham Forest, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is they've got too many players, so people don't know who they are or what they're going to do. So it's hard to pick who's a sort of a talisman. But if there is a talisman, it's this guy, because he scored, and you probably correct me, 8-9 games in a row, 25 FPL points. This is elite. This is a top player.
He got an assist in the last game week, but the run of attacking returns, he was on a great goal run before that. Stretching back to last season, I think he'd scored in 6 straight games or something similar to that. I'll let you carry on, Joe, if you were going to.
I was just going to explain about the ownership here. All of the players we mentioned, I haven't put their specific ownership. They're all under 5%. Many of them are under 1%. Awoniyi just sneaked in when I did this at 4.8%. So he's a well-owned asset amongst the ultra differentials. He's the king of that. So 4.8%. So that's all I wanted to say for that. But with Burnley next, then Man City, but then Brentford and Crystal Palace. It's a good run of fixtures, isn't it? I'd be tempted.
Yeah, I think he's pretty nailed into that team, given his form. I know Origi's arrived, but I think he'll be back up for a while. You've got Gibbs White creating behind him. Alanga's gone there as well. They're playing this new kind of not new system. They did use a back three at times last year for us, but they seem to have settled on the recruitment seems to be driven towards that kind of shape. And this is the same system that he played in Germany in the Bundesliga when he did very well at Berlin before he came over. So it's a system he obviously likes. The wing backs obviously get crosses into the box, which he can feed off, and he's confident. He's on a good run, and I quite like him as an option for the next game week. Burnley at home is probably about as good a fixture as you can get at the moment, isn't it? Given what we were saying earlier about their defence.
Yes.
So yeah, why not?
Yeah, definitely. He's another. If Evan Ferguson is injured for a while, he's another I would be considering. Perhaps go for him, and then hop on to Morris. But that's an option. Pedro owners might be had enough of Pedro, who's also not getting starts. And they might want to go for a more reliable striker.
Yeah, I think all I would just say is that his 3 goals this year have come from 7 shots. And I flagged it up a couple of weeks ago that we maybe wanted to see a bit his shot volume go up a bit. But maybe that'll be the fixture. Maybe this Burnley fixture, it'd be a surprise if he isn't getting 3 or 4 shots in that game if he plays 70, 75 minutes. So maybe that will improve once the fixtures get easier for them. So, I don't dislike that at all.
Sarr at Tottenham, he's at minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 129 minutes. So once again, way better than any Burnley and Luton asset. But he's 4.6. I mean, a useful enabler. You might get some points on. 16 points so far, 3 starts out of 4, an assist and a goal. I mean, they're obviously better assets, but he is what he is. He's 4.6. So you're getting a player that can get you returns at 4.6 from a good side, a good attacking side. So once again, better than Luton and Burnley. But the next guy here, 24 points, Crystal Palace striker, Edouard, 5.5 million, 4 starts. Started all the matches, minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty 134. And it's not bad fixtures really. Aston Villa away, but then Fulham at home, Manchester United away, and Crystal Palace have a good record against Manchester United, and then Nottingham Forest at home. So this is a pretty nice run of fixtures. Edouard, now once again, this isn't just because I'm a Brighton fan, but a bit like Bournemouth, I haven't really paid much attention to Crystal Palace. At my cost, obviously. I'm missing out 24 points, FPL points from Edouard. What's your take on Edouard? Is it? I mean, I'm saying he is a forward in the game, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There was a bit of talk, he tended to rotate with Mateta quite a bit last year, which always was a bit off-putting. But there was rumours that Mateta was going to leave. He hasn't, but he's very much second choice now. Yeah. Edouard's doing well. Okay. I think I'm right in saying only Haaland has attempted more shots in the forward category this year than Edouard. I think he's had something like 18 shots in the box. It was really good figures, and we've just put together a big numbers article for the website, and 4 of his efforts have actually been inside the 6-yard box, which is ideally, if you play a shooting from there, he's probably going to score. So he's got good stats, good home fixtures. The away fixtures maybe not quite so good, but suddenly now, I mean, you mentioned Morris, you mentioned Awoniyi, and I think you can probably add Edouard to that list. There's suddenly 3-4 good players around that price up front who I think are viable options for the next one. There's suddenly loads of options. I mean, we always talk about forwards, the lack of options, but there's actually quite a few now.
And we haven't mentioned Archer as well, 4.5 million, Sheffield United. He'll be the main striker. He might come off every 70 minutes, 80 minutes, something like that. But while we've got him, we've got that array of money, array of choice, as you just said, but loads of money you can save, and you can put that money into defenders. For example, Trippier. you can put into midfield. For example, Son, who what people want to get.
Or Salah, I think now that we know is staying. I think a lot of people are going to look him, and we have got the players at the right prices available to enable that.
Yeah, so I mean, my price points are up front. I've got Haaland, and then I've got Ferguson, so I've got around 6 million bid in the bank, and then 4.5 million. And other people have, say, Watkins or Jackson. But with those players we're mentioning here, like Awoniyi, Edouard, Ferguson, these are players that are hitting sort of over 20 points, 25 points so far. So you can get the points that Watkins and Jackson arguably should be getting for 2 million less. So I'm sticking until I wildcard, which should be some point between game week 8 and 10, I think, but probably a bit later in that cycle, 9 or 10. I'm going to stick with this cheap striker, playable striker.
Watkins and Jackson are underperforming, aren't they? Massively on their numbers. Yeah. So if that continues, then certainly. Why would you spend 2 million more on them? It just depends if you think that is going to change in the next few fixtures or not. And that's the big question.
Well, that's it. Luckily, we've got time. But it's interesting for those who are wildcard. A lot of people are wildcarding this week as well. So that's an interesting thing that they can. I mean, I think if I was wildcarding, I would go for the more expensive guy. I would go for a Watkins or a Jackson.
And then you can drop down
because you can drop down. Now, if I'm wrong and the likes of Edouard, Awoniyi, Ferguson don't keep doing that, then you've got to find that money somewhere to go up. I think if you're wild, and obviously with a wild card you can do that. You can rearrange it. So if you're wild carding now, I'd probably urge on caution and go for Watkins and Jackson. But I do think there's tremendous value here. But it's a risk if you're wild carding this week. But if you've got your wild card in your pocket still, I think there's money to be saved there. Last name on this list, and I've just flagged him up really just because I haven't been giving Everton a lot of love so far this season. I don't think anyone has really. But Dan Juma at Everton. Calvert-Lewin, we have to accept, is just never going to be fit enough to last more than a match, maybe 2 in a row. So Dan Juma's probably going to get the starts. He's just had 11 FPL points so far, but his minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, 137 minutes. Got Arsenal next, but then Brentford, and then Luton and Bournemouth. So after the Arsenal game, it's not a bad set of fixtures, and Luton-Bournemouth is a lovely little run there. And if you're looking for a differential, game week 7, 8, an ultra differential, under 5% owned, and as bad as Everton are, the likelihood of them getting returns in Luton Bournemouth should be quite high. And Dan Juma could be that man. But a sort of a lesser figure on this list for me. But yeah, what do you think with Everton? I mean, am I being unfair? I mean, are they really that bad?
No, I think they need to become more clinical, but I think the new signings, I think Beto going in there, and Danjuma is taking a lot of shots at this year. I think he's averaging a shot like every 90 minutes at the moment. Wow. He's only had a couple of starts. So when he's given the chance, I think he'll do all right. And I think that those two fixtures, Luton and Bournemouth, are great. And if you have got the flexibility to be able to take, I'd be very happy taking a punt on him for a couple of weeks, whether or not that will be possible with squads and what they're doing. But yeah, for somebody who's say wild carding in 9, that you could take a punt on the Luton and Bournemouth game, and then you're just using the one transfer to bring him in, and then you whip him out in game week 9.
Definitely.
So that could be something that I don't dislike it, because I do think Everton will improve now they've got Beto in there, Danjuma in there, McNeil's coming back as well, who's a really important player for Sean Dyche. So, yeah, I think that I wouldn't be so down on them as maybe others are.
Okay, let's have a look at worst defences next. Now, I've got this in mind just because Haaland will be the most popular captain. He just is, if he's fit, obviously. But there is a lot of interest in other players, particularly Son after his hat-trick, and it looks like he'll be playing up front. Son up front is a better prospect than playing out on the wing. It doesn't guarantee points, nothing in this game does. But so I just thought to flag up some of the worst defences so far. And this is minutes per expected goals conceded. So that is a fairer because Luton and Burnley have obviously played one match less. So if you were to just do it by expected goals conceded, that would be unfair on Luton and Burnley. It just so happens that they're actually rubbish on this metric as well. So in terms of minutes per expected goals conceded, Luton is the second worst and Burnley is the fourth worst. So Fulham are the worst. They are conceding a goal, expected to concede a goal every 32 minutes. Luton every 39 minutes. Sheffield United every 41 minutes. Burnley every 41 minutes. Then Bournemouth 42 minutes. And then it starts getting a little bit bigger. There's a bit of a jump to Brighton, not much though, expected to concede a goal every 48 minutes. Then you've got Wolves, Villa, Manchester United, and Manchester United. And then West Ham, minutes per expected goal conceded every 57 minutes. So West Ham are sort of mid-table in terms of what they're expected to concede. West Ham have had no clean sheets and have conceded 4 goals. In contrast, Fulham have conceded 10 and Burnley have conceded 11, just to put that into perspective. Best defences, no surprise, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Chelsea and Brentford. Well, actually, Chelsea is a surprise. So in terms of minutes per expected goals conceded, they're doing well there. So this is interesting because Man City play West Ham, so Haaland against West Ham, who have only conceded 4 but have got no clean sheets and are sort of mid-table here in terms of poor defences. Meanwhile, you've got some better fixtures here. You've got, say, Spurs, so Son or Maddison be captain against Sheffield United, the third worst defence so far in terms of minutes per expected goals conceded. And then if you look at the Fulham-Luton game, no one's going to captain them here, but just it's worth interesting. These are the 2 worst defences up against each other. So this could be a good time to get Morrison, perhaps. You might get some returns there. So, yeah, I mean, are you captaining Haaland, and is it worth considering captaining someone else?
I'm pretty certain I'll captain Haaland at this stage. I haven't got Son as an option. I could bring him in, which we'll talk about. I can do it in one move, but I find it hard to look past Haaland. I mean, you've got West Ham, who are kind of like a mid-table defence, which is what the table suggests, and I think that's pretty fair. What I will say, they have conceded a lot of shots so far. They went to Luton before the international break. They conceded 16 shots. They did well against your team, Brighton, when they sat back and they countered, but they did concede 25 shots in that game as well. So the goal is getting peppered with shots. Maybe not like clear cut opportunities, but they're giving up a lot of shots. And I think when you've got somebody like Haaland in town, he'll be able to take advantage of that. I mean, I saw some people earlier on in the season saying, well, the weeks to go against Haaland was when he's got an away fixture. But he's done pretty well so far. He's scored in both of his away games. He missed the penalty at Sheffield United. If he hadn't have done that, he would have got a couple of double-digit returns in those games. And West Ham will be a much harder game, but I still find it hard to look past him. If you had both, Joe, if you had Son and Haaland, could you be tempted?
No. I mean, I've got Maddison. I prefer Maddison to Son. I just think in terms of pure points, goal involvement, assists, goals, bonus points, Maddison's your man. But irrespective of where Son's playing, because Son's quite streaky as well. So even if he is playing up top, which obviously has been rare over the years because Harry Kane's been playing there. But the times he has, I haven't been thought, ooh. I mean, Son is very clinical, very good. But if he's against a low block side, like Sheffield United could be, it doesn't fill me with hope. Whereas against the sort of West Ham defence of sort of defend, then sort of smash and grab, which worked beautifully against Brighton. But I don't see that working against Man City. And if they're conceding, 25 shots against Brighton, Haaland's as great as the Brighton strikers are. Haaland's in another stratosphere, so Haaland will take advantage of that. So it's more of a case of how many will Haaland score, not will. Huge
responsibility, and for Maddison, going back to the Maddison Son thing, I think this is the game where they're going to be more reliant on ever than him for a player creating, pulling the strings. It might take a set piece, a free kick, a corner. So I think he's a really good option this week. I don't think I'd captain Maddison over somebody like Haaland, but I think if you own him and you don't own Son, I think you can still go into this game week pretty confident that Maddison's going to do well. Son has still got to get through another fixture. I think this evening, isn't it,
Yeah.
at St James's Park.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything to be alarmed around. We were talking earlier.
Mm.
We've seen a couple of pictures of him with his knee with an ice pack on it, which I don't think is a new thing. I think that he's been managing that. Our understanding is for the season so far. But again, it's just something to monitor. If he isn't in that starting 11 later on, we're obviously going to then need an update. So hold those transfers if you. I mean, we spoke about it on the last episode, didn't we, Joe? But let's just see if there's anything in that or not.
We did speak about in the last, so do have a look at that last video. That we have quite an interesting discussion about, especially with people in the live chat, about making early transfers, and that's the risk you take. And if you're taking that risk because you would be priced out of any price changes, so be it. But if you're taking that risk just because you want to get an extra 0.1, but you say you've already got $1 million in the bank and can easily afford it, then you perhaps might want to weigh that up. But some people like that risk. That's why they play the game. You know, don't go crying when Son gets injured against when he plays tonight at 5:30.
Well, hopefully he won't. I mean, we think he'll play through the middle again. I mean, there is Richarlison there. He's been playing for Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't surprise me if even if he doesn't start, he's going to play. I think this is the perfect game to get Richarlison a bit of confidence back in him, maybe. And so it wouldn't be surprised if he's on the bench. He goes up front and Son moves back to the left wing or something like that, maybe. I don't think that's unrealistic. Okay. So, I mean, we've only had one game of Son at centre forward, and there is a bit of uncertainty. I think it'd be harsh to move him from there now after a hat-trick, but there is a bit of uncertainty there about where he is going to play longer term.
Definitely. And before we move on to, just want to recap on the goals imminent and assists imminent tables we did last week. And one more fixture I just want to flag up. It's the Manchester United Brighton one, but less about the Brighton attack, but more about the Brighton defence. So Brighton's defence, minutes per expected goals conceded every 48 minutes. Manchester United, there's a bit of turmoil there. They've got certain players, have got certain off the field issues. Anthony is the latest there. He won't play. Sancho is not playing. He's fallen out with the manager. Unlikely he'll play. So this is the whole right wing gone. Fernandes can play there. But also there might be a chance for the theme of this show, under the radar gems. We've got Palestri could play. Garnacho could play on the left wing, and perhaps Rashford might move. So you've got potential options there. Out of all, and of course Højlund is their new striker, who we haven't seen much of in the Premier League, but he seems good. He seems like he's going to fit in. He's definitely a Ten Hag player. So out of all of those names I've just mentioned there, which do you think would be the one that would get in your differentials article each week?
Højlund, I think. I think he looked good against Arsenal when he came on. I think it's what United have been missing, that proper centre forward who can hold the ball up, bring others into play. I did actually, when I saw the notes for the show earlier, Joe, I spoke to Neil about, obviously the team news guru. He knows what he's talking about with lineups. And I said, what are the chances of Palestri playing? And he was saying, look, he hasn't played a Premier League game before, and do you throw him into a fixture of this big game against Brighton? And then we started talking about other options. You could push Rashford to the right and Garnacho could come into the left, Højlund up top then, and that doesn't have an impact on Fernandes, but you could move Fernandes to the right as well. And then you would maybe put Eriksen to attack in midfield, and Amrabat would come in at the base next to Casemiro. So there's quite a few different options there. And that's why I wouldn't feel confident saying, go for Palestri or go for Garnacho, because I'm just a bit unsure. I mean, Joe, you're the Brighton fan. I mean, if Wan-Bissaka has done very well against Mitoma previously, but do you think that you need, do you think then putting Palestri in front of Wan-Bissaka? I don't know enough about Palestri and his kind of his work rate and how much defensive side of his game it needs work, or if it's very good. I don't know, but that seems to me like maybe a bit of a risk in this fixture. Yeah,
well, Wan-Bissaka can get the better of Mitoma, so he is kryptonite to Mitoma's magic. But I do think you will need a right wing player that you can trust there. So which makes me think that Fernandes might get the nod. I don't know if anyone, did you see the Portugal game? I saw a couple of clips. Portugal beat Luxembourg 9-0, I think it was in the end. The Luxembourg manager, I think, left halfway through the second half because he's had enough. But one of the many three Fernandes assists was out from the right in a sort of a right wing position. It was quite an amazing assist actually for the goal. So it makes me think that if you're a Fernandes owner, I wouldn't like. I prefer to see Fernandes through the middle, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if he played there.
He's played there a few times before, hasn't he? For United, it's not an unfamiliar position.
No.
I don't think they've used Eriksen because Mount's not going to be back. We don't think. No. I think they're targeting the Bayern match. Okay. So does he then put Eriksen in the hole? Well, I don't think he's done that too much before, but he could easily do it, couldn't he? So. Yeah, I think, but Højlund, I think, out of just because I think he'll start and I think he's looked good, and again another forward to add to the list, which is quite a rarity in FPL. But we've probably got 8, 9, 10 options up front and forward who I probably wouldn't mind punting on. So
no, and as I said with Archer at 4.5, we got that rare thing. A starting and good striker at 4.5, it doesn't happen every season.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind three slots of players you can rely on every week. Switching to some kind of 3-4-3. But then we've got all these midfielders, so 3-5-2 still makes sense. But as you said, lots and lots of choice, and this is where these players are emerging. But it's interesting, Manchester United. I'm not around for team news with Neil this Friday, but I think David or someone else will be there with him. And so do watch that. And I will certainly watch it back when I'm back on Friday night to watch that, because I'm intrigued to see how Manchester United are going to line up, because they're against a poor defence, but or the defence that can concede and a good attack.
You're quite down on Brighton's defence at the moment, are you, Joe?
No, not as well. I'm down on it in terms of clean sheets, but I think we're down on everyone in clean sheets. So it's a bit early to say. I do think that Brighton have very good defenders. I haven't seen enough of Igor. He's played Igor, however you pronounce him, has joined. So he could be good as well. Webster's not having a great season. So Van Heck and Dunk, I think, is a great centre-back partnership. But will they keep clean sheets, especially in a match like this? Probably not. But Estupiñán's so attacking. I'm quite happy to field him this week if I need to, because So I'm down on them from the defensive point of view, but that doesn't discount Estupiñán being a great all-round FPL points getter there.
Agreed.
Okay, before we have a look at our teams, I'm just going to flag up the goals imminent and assists imminent tables that we had last week. So do have a look at last week's video. It's just in the live section on our channel. It's only 5 or 6 videos back last Tuesday, or just search for goals imminent Fantasy Football Scout, and you'll get that video. So you'll have all our commentary on it. So I'm just for those that can't be bothered to do that, I'm just going to read out some of the names, and that's it. We'll move on. But if you want commentary on that, go and have a look at last week's video. But goals imminent in terms of game week 5, Jackson, Watkins are the top there. Bruno Fernandes, and Enzo Fernandez are also high up on that. And you've got Rashford as well, sneaked onto the goals imminent table. These, apart from Jackson, Watkins and Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, if they're on this table, they frequently pop off because they score. And there's a good Manchester United run at the moment. So I'd definitely hang on to your Manchester United attackers, would be good advice. Meanwhile, on assists imminent table, Pascal Gross, good timing. He loves playing against Manchester United, loves to score and assist against them, and he is second in this table behind Fernandes, with his 17 corners. And then you've got Bruno Fernandes is on here as well. Son could be getting some assists from Son. Kulusevski's here. Trippier at Newcastle. Interesting Newcastle players. So if you want commentary on all those, have a look at last week's video. But I just wanted to flag up some of those names here, because there's a lot of players that people are interested in getting in. Or in fact, with the likes of Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, people have actually removed. So they've actually gone down in price. Let's have a look at our teams, our game week 5 thoughts. So I'll pop your team up first, Tom.
Okay.
Do you want to go through your players? Presuming you haven't made any moves, and if you've got any moves planned.
Yes. So the team, I think you can see on your screen, has Onana in goal, Saliba, Chilwell, and Udogie at the back, and then I've got five across midfield: Saka, Sterling, Mbomo, Fernandes, and Rashford. Jackson and Haaland up top. Haaland's my captain. And then on the bench, I've got Areola, Archer, Estupinan, and Gahey. Got 2 free transfers, and I've got 1.3 million in the bank.
Well, I'm just going to stop you. That's about as perfect as it gets. Great team, 2 free transfers, money in the bank, and a great bench.
Yeah, well, it's kind of been the last few videos we've done, Joe. I haven't really had any obvious moves to make, and I don't really like that because I feel like sometimes you're searching around for moves and you don't really. Again, this team probably doesn't really need. I don't think anyway a transfer. I think there's maybe a bit of a weakness in goal with the current situation with United's defence and Onana. But after this week, the fixtures get good again. Players like Varane and Shaw and Martinez should start to come back. So I don't really feel like it's a priority move there. I looked at the back line and thought I'll probably only play Saliba in 2 of the next 5 game weeks. So I could sell him, but I'm not sure if I really need to. Estupinan, I'll probably only play in game week 6, but he's actually quite useful that game week because Arsenal play Tottenham.
Yeah.
And so immediately Saliba and Udogie come out of my team and Estupinan and Gahey come in next week. So I don't know if the defence needs much work this week. And then you start looking at other areas of your team. And again, it's hard to know where the transfer is. I think the most likely player I'd sell is perhaps Saka. If I was going to, I haven't got a Tottenham midfielder, and this is a great fixture this week.
Yeah.
But then they've got 2 trickier fixtures after. I still think they can score in them though. So that's kind of putting me off a Spurs midfielder a bit. Do you think if you didn't own Maddison this week, Joe, would you move for him now, bearing in mind the fixtures after?
No, I think Maddison time was a few weeks back, or after the 2 tricky fixtures. So as you mentioned there, Spurs, they got Sheffield United at home next, but then they got Arsenal away and Liverpool at home, and then they've got Luton in game week 8. So game week 8 it starts getting great again, which is why people are considering.
That's the swing.
That's the swing there. Yeah. So Maddison time is not now. It's game week 8, or if you've done it before.
That's what I think, and I'm going to captain Haaland regardless.
Yeah.
So I kind of think then if I wanted to captain Son, I could maybe say, well, yeah, the move's worthwhile. The transfer Saka to Son and captain Son is worthwhile. But if I'm not going to do that, I don't know. I'm going to see what happens over the next couple of days, and I'm not completely ruling out a Saka to Son or a Saka to Maddison. But again, I like Gibbs White as well, but it's very hard to know. I'm not going to sell Mbomo.
Tell what. So there's a couple of. At the moment, my instinct would be just to burn a transfer, because even your bench is pretty good. So you've got Areola in, who's the best 4.1, 4.0 goalkeeper, and he probably will be on most wildcards. So he's only going to go up in price. But a good couple of ideas in the chat. Okay, so Chris Chapman says Son in for Rashford. Now, even though this isn't the best time to get a Spurs player in, and you would reject that, other people might consider that who've got both Fernandes and Rashford to go into that Brighton match with 2 Manchester United attackers and maybe go for Son. That's an option. But another one, and this might be one you might consider. Archer's on your bench there. Archer is obviously a 4.5 option. You haven't used a wild card yet. You're going to wild card at some point. You might want to go back to that 4.5, but you've got the money in the bank to do Archer to Morris, and Morris has a good fixture this week with Fulham away, and he has good fixtures coming up. So he could be used, and then you've got him in for game week 7, and by that time he could be 0.2, 0.3 more expensive. So.
Not a bad shout. Would you start him? Would you start him this week, Joe? Or would you just have him first sub?
Over any of your other players? No. But he's a great first sub, and he's in place. His price isn't going to go down. No one's already got Morris. People are going to get Morris, and I would be minded to do that. Who was who said that? Eng7 Iceman.
Well, this is
Morrison.
why.
Well done. Good move.
This is why I like coming on these shows, and we didn't used to do this segment, but I really like it because just having a fresh pair of eyes on a team, I hadn't really given that too much thought. I'm not saying I'll definitely do it, but it's just nice to think about other options. And the whoever said the Rashford to Son move, I didn't mean to just disregard it straight off the bat, but I do think that with Rashford, I think back on the left, Højlund coming back in. This week, I'd rather have Son than Rashford, but when you look at United's fixtures after Burnley, Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United, that's why I'm kind of a bit hesitant to remove Fernandes or Rashford now, because I know that I'll want them back for the week after for Burnley.
Okay.
But yeah, the Morris shout, it's not a bad one. No.
I think N7 Iceman has basically said that he meant Morris for game week 7, but it's actually quite a good shout now to have him in place, and other people in the chat are agreeing. Zem is agreeing with that as well. I think I think he's a really good option for the bench there. There's he wouldn't come in at anyone. The only other potential option, you've got to think of weak links, and I would probably say Jackson is a slight unknown. Still. We don't know. We don't know whether those underlying stats are going to turn into goals, or he'll just forever be on that goals imminent table.
Yeah, I did look at Jackson, and I suppose Alvarez is the player which you look at as a good replacement, but it's just that international fixture which is making me think, don't do that now. He'll probably play, but Jackson at Bournemouth, he's struggling at the moment. But let's just maybe the international break will have done him a bit of good. And that's the same for Sterling. Sterling hasn't been on international duty. He's fully refreshed after 2 weeks. He underwhelmed against Forest. Both of them were close to attacking returns, but Jackson missed the cutback. But I think I can give them. Double Chelsea attack doesn't feel great at the moment, but given the fixtures, the next 4, I think I can at least give it Bournemouth and then kind of reanalyse them. I'll probably have 2 free transfers next week as well. I'm only going to use 1, if anything, this week. So I suppose I could look at something like Gahey to a Newcastle defender, just to get them in place for that good run. But I don't know if I want to go up to Shah. I think I prefer Botman, and I wouldn't play them. Would I play at home against Brentford this week instead of Saliba? Probably not.
No, and also you've got Mbomo, so you're reducing the chances of you getting a sort of clean sweep of points from 2 players because you've got attack versus defence. No, I think that's lots to think about there. And I'd be very tempted by that move. Also, in the live chat, Garrick has pointed out that Morris is against Fulham, who's got a great memory because 5 minutes ago we showed the weakest defences and Fulham are the weakest. So Morris against the weakest defence. That's a championship game there and then, and it could do well. Okay.
It got me thinking now, but move on to.
I'll move on to mine. So you were saying it was getting a bit boring with your team. No changes to make. It's all perfect and brilliant. Well, luckily I'm here.
I'm sure it'll be me in a few weeks' time.
I've always got a move I can make. So I am also rocking a 3-5-2 like many people this season, and I've gone Turner in goal against Burnley. So I think he's a good shout actually. Fingers crossed for a clean sheet there against Burnley at home. I've got Diaz against West Ham. I'm hoping that West Ham's smash and grab raids they just sit back and don't just fail to smash and grab a goal, but you never know. Man City, I could see that being 3-1 to them with him conceding. Chilwell, I think it's great and defence against Bournemouth. Currently I've got a Stupinan, but I prefer a Stupinan as my first bench. I like his attacking threat. I don't think he's going to get a clean sheet, so ultimately I would prefer him as my first sub. And then I'll explain who I might go for in a minute. I've got Maddison as my vice captain. I think he's very good this week. Rashford and Bruno, I'm happy with that. I really like Manchester United's run. Happy with those 2 at home to Brighton. Even though Right, my team. Saka away to Everton. Thank you very much. That'll do me nice. Sterling, I'm very happy with him. He passes the eye test, so let's hope he can turn his good performances into more goals away to Burnley. I've got Haaland captain, like many people. I've got Ferguson still, so he has. I like this slot at the moment. I've had Pedro and now Ferguson, so Ferguson's got me 17, 18, 19 points from this role, and Pedro has got me 8 points. So it's 27 points from one position on my team, which is, if I had a striker from the off, game one, who got 27 points by this stage, I'd be very happy. I have used, obviously, a transfer. So I don't mind. I'm not wedded to Ferguson. So if he's out this week, I'll bench him, and I will look to get another defender in to maybe go 4-5-1, because I want to play Ferguson against Bournemouth in game week 6. Yeah. If he looks like it, if it's one of those, he's undecided and he's definitely not playing here and we don't know, and then I'll cut my losses and I'll move on. I'll just get Morris in. He's against the worst defence. I think that's a great shout, and he's in place for game week 7, and I'll just field him as well. So I'll do that. But if Ferguson's fine, then I'll play him happily for the next 2 game weeks. And then game week 7, I'll move him to Morris. And on my bench, I've got Onana, Henry, Archer, and Bayer. So I've explained all those Ferguson permutations there. So Morris is on my radar there, possibly might be needed. I'm actually thinking of getting rid of Henry because I don't want to play him against Newcastle. I think if I go for someone like Udogie, I've got a great fixture this week. I can move a Stupinan to the bench. And I've got Archer as perhaps a backup for Ferguson. And a Stupinan as a backup for Ferguson, indeed. So, I don't mind that so much. And I think with you mentioned about Udogie, you're benching Udogie game week 6 for a Stupinan. That's exactly what I'll be doing. I'm just going to swap them out of their good fixtures, and then Udogie can sort of sit on the bench a bit more. I'm happy to play a Stupinan until I wildcard. So
I guess if Ferguson is out, but there's a chance of him being back for Bournemouth, and you want to make that defence move. I don't think losing Henry is ideal because I think he's got good fixtures still to come, hasn't he? But you might feel like if you think Ferguson against Bournemouth has got the potential to be another Newcastle when he gets a hat trick and nobody else owns him, which they won't if he misses this week. Then that might be worth doing defensive move. You probably want to keep hold of Bayer just because he's cheap. He's got a double coming up. You might not play him, but he might be useful if you get, And it's hard to, again, like, you're not going to lose a midfielder. The midfield looks absolutely great this week. It looks, it's better than mine because you've got Maddison instead of Mbomo this week. And so, no, I think it's a good team. Ruben might concede, but don't think playing a City defender is a bad thing. Yeah. No, and maybe the defensive move.
So I have... forget how many transfers I've got left. I've got one transfer, I think. One transfer. So I will use one. And Ferguson and getting a defender that's better than a Stupinan and Henry in my first 11 is a key for me. But I wouldn't field Archer, but I'd be happy with Archer as first sub.
I was just about to say, I mean, I think that Tottenham have kept a couple of clean sheets so far, haven't they? But I don't think they've been entirely convincing. No. And so, Archer on the counter-attack, nicking a goal. I think they'll lose, but in a 3-1 or a 4-1 maybe or something, then, or maybe that's being a bit harsh on Sheffield United, maybe a 2 or a 3-1. But if Archer's, I think, going to be involved in there, I think when you see a goal alert from Sheffield United now, I think there's a good chance Archer's going to be involved in that. And so... spearheading the attack, and so I don't mind him as a first sub at all. So
Okay, so a bit to think about. I'm away most of the day Friday, but I'll be back in the evening. It's a Saturday deadline, thank God. Because these Friday
Yes,
deadlines
yeah,
are
oh
really
God.
tricky, especially when you're working, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's very difficult to do. Yeah, I'm blessed that I do the team news video with Neil, so I'm getting first hand all the
Yeah,
expertise on it,
I
but it's
don't.
still difficult.
Yeah, it always feels rushed, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
don't like it.
I often cover the Friday night games for Scouts, so I work the mornings and then I take a break in the afternoon.
Mm.
But you don't really feel like you want to be taking a break on the Friday. You can't really
No,
because you're always checking your phone, and so it
yeah,
doesn't really feel like you have
no.
the. And then you work. It's just yeah, Saturday deadlines are just I'd much prefer them. So.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've got some interesting thoughts for our teams in game week 5. I'm sure those in the live chat do too. Do get your questions in the live chat. Do put a question mark at the end so I can see them easily. We do have some questions already, so I'll start reading them out and have a think in the live chat about your own questions as well. So, now a lot of people, a couple of people, Historia Films in particular, Rashford to Gross, they've put a little winky face on that, but not unusual. Gross has an amazing track record against Manchester United. I was reading another article about it. I think he scored 2 goals in 2 minutes or something like that in the in a game last season against Manchester United, and I do remember the game where he didn't get a return but walked away with 3 bonus points because he ended up being the best player on the pitch in a losing side.
Well, he's created more chance than any other player in the division so far this
Wow.
season.
Okay.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And he's been playing in central midfield, hasn't he, Joe? There hasn't been that shift into right back so far this year. Because obviously Milner's come in, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He can play there. And so, yeah, I mean, Gross always feels like we speak about it so much, don't we? It feels like he's kind of like third, fourth in the pecking order, especially with Fatty coming in as well. But he does deserve more credit because he tends to tick along quite nicely, doesn't he? And he's a massive threat from set pieces and loves playing United.
And he plays almost every game, and in fact every game unless he's injured. So if I was doing a set and forget team, game week 1, I would put Gross in.
Yeah, he's good in the draft mode, isn't he?
So if you're off on holiday and away from the internet for a couple of weeks, get Gross in. You'll get some points there. Joshua Tan asks, would you play Pedro, Joe? I would wait until team news because if Welbeck's not back and Ferguson's not back, then Pedro will play and he could even be number 9. Think that. So, here's Nevis asked, thoughts on Jesus, guys? Jesus has scored more goals versus Everton than any other opponent in his career. I'm just going to trust Nevis on that one. Tom, what do you reckon? Jesus? We talk about all these strikers, but...
That's another one to add to the list, isn't it? Yeah, he looked good when he came on, didn't he? He got the goal and... I was expecting a bigger season from him, and then he picked up the injury, didn't he, quite early doors. But yeah, again, he's another forward who he's going to get chances in that Arsenal team. It's a very good side, and if you've got Odegaard, if you've got Saka, you've got Martinelli there, you've got creative players. He's gonna do well. I mean, the fixtures are a bit mixed, aren't they? After Everton, I think it's Tottenham, Bournemouth, Man City, Chelsea, but. You're going to back Arsenal to score probably in each of those games. Yeah. So I don't dislike it. I mean, I don't know if has he been away with. I don't know if he's been away with Brazil actually, but I doubt he probably has. So he might have been building up his fitness potentially. I'll have a look at that now, just so we know.
Well, I'll move on to another question, and then you can come back and see Jesus' sort of status at the moment. J77 Lag, what to do with Jota, guys? Stick or transfer out for Maddison? He might haunt me. He might haunt his old team. So Jota is exactly one of those players. If you've got, what you're buying yourself into. He's a player that won't start every game. If he comes on as a sub, he could get a hat-trick. He could start and get a hat-trick. He could come on and get 1 point. That's the player you bought into. You haven't bought into a 90-minute man. So that's what you're risking every time. If he's fit, irrespective of whether he's starting, all of these things, you are risking losing points there. But that's the risk you take. But do you transfer out for Maddison? Maddison, granted, has a great fixture this week. So Liverpool play... just looking down the list, I can't even find them. So, Liverpool play Wolves away, which is an okay fixture. But, of course, Maddison has Sheffield United. But they have Liverpool, and so Spurs have Arsenal and Liverpool in the next two. So I would just stick with Jota for the moment, personally, and I think Maddison times game week 8. But that's the risk you take if you own Jota.
Yeah. See what the team news says on Friday, because with Liverpool, you have got Diaz coming back from international duty from South America. You've got Darwin coming back from South America.
Yeah.
So if there is, it wouldn't be a surprise if
that's true.
Jota played this weekend. And it's a pretty good fixture against Wolves.
Do you know what? That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of as well. Yes, that I would say. So if I was doing the stats on Rate My Team, I would bump up Jota's minutes.
Tweak it.
I would tweak his minutes because I think he could possibly get more minutes there. Did you find out where Jesus is currently?
Yeah, he's in North London. He hasn't gone, as far as I'm aware. I just had a look at the Brazil list, which Neil compiled. Okay. So that is, I think that's a good thing if you're considering him. I think 2 weeks on the training pitch, getting his match fitness back, well, not match fitness, but trying to get sharper in training. I think that's probably a positive. And but then. Does he start at Everton with Nketiah playing well? Probably he does come back in, but again, I'd want to refer to people like Neil, who knows more about the team news, and see what he says on Friday.
Okay. So, as has been pointed out, I haven't had it verified, but he has scored more against them than any other team in the Premier League. Garrick asks, who's the best second City attacker? Pick Foden, who he believes has overachieved. Alvarez, which frees up a midfield slot, and could be the deputy penalty taker. He said. The only thing I would say, yes, I mean I've got the money to replace Ferguson with Alvarez now, and I would do, apart from the fact that Alvarez on Wednesday night is playing practically on the moon without a spacesuit in Bolivia, so he's so far up there. So if I can get a guarantee from Pep Guardiola, which is not going to happen on Friday, that both Alvarez's lungs are still intact after playing up a mountain, then I would be tempted by that. But I would, as Tom just said, wait for team news on that one.
Yeah, I mean, he does look really good. He's playing that kind of more creative midfield role, and he's creating a lot, but he's also getting a lot of shots, and he's started to take on a lot of set pieces out of nowhere as well. So there's loads of route to points. You've got Champions League coming back in, which always makes me a little bit hesitant with City players not named Haaland. But it does feel like with De Bruyne's absence, he's becoming more and more of a key player in that team. So I still think he'll do very well.
Tom O'Connell asks, he plans to drop Wissa and pick up a Awoniyi or Morris, looking ahead to the double. Awoniyi seems like he can score against anyone. Thoughts? Well, we have just discussed those exact players, so do have a listen back to that chat. But I would say it depends on what position your team is in. If Tom is like our Tom here, and his team is fine, and he's struggling to make a change really, then I would consider going Awoniyi then Morris, because Awoniyi has a great fixture next. So does Morris, granted, but Awoniyi is a better player, and you could do the sort of thing that I've been doing as well with Pedro to Ferguson. Quite happy to hop on, hop off. And strikers, just go for whoever's playing, the worst defence and is a good striker. I would consider that. But if you haven't got the luxury of that, just go Morris, because that's a move you could probably want to make game week 7.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. So I don't think there's anything wrong. Look, we said be hesitant with Luton and Burnley players at the beginning, and there is an element. Don't be expecting them to get braces every week. But if you're making a move now, and even if Morris doesn't do much at Fulham, then you've got 3 fixtures in the next 2 game weeks after that.
Yeah.
So even on appearance points, even if he lets you down, he's still probably going to get 4 points in a double game week, you'd hope. And he's on penalties, so there's always a chance that he gets a goal and a bit of bonus. So he goes to Man City next week, doesn't he? So it might be and then he plays Brentford at home, which isn't a terrible fixture, but Brentford are pretty good defensively. So it does feel like the Awoniyi play is all about game week 5.
And so that's what I mean. It's sort of a luxury move if you wanted to just play around there, but if not, just go straight for Morris. Ewan asks Foden to Son. If you can afford it, I'd be tempted, but you always run a risk Foden's a good player as well. And Son, you're literally doing it for one fixture because the next two are bad and then they become good again. But you have to play Son for his price during the bad fixtures, whereas Foden, during that time, has Nottingham Forest at home and Wolves away. So he's arguably got 3 good fixtures in a row rather than 1.
Yeah, and the deadline, not this game week, the game week after, the first match is at 3 p.m. on a Saturday because there's one of the 8 p.m. games again, and City is the 3 p.m. So there's a good chance we'll know by deadline if Foden is starting in that, and if he is, he's obviously an amazing option at home to Forest. I don't know. I mean, see what happens with this Son news and see where that takes you. But if you're not gonna put the armband on Son this week, then I might be tempted to keep Foden.
The answer I've got for Russell's question, which is hold Isak, is to hold that thought because this afternoon I'm going to be recording a video about Newcastle assets in which I'll talk about Isak, and so do watch that. That'll be out about 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And one premise of that is that we don't know what changes are going to be in Champions League, and currently in Newcastle's attack you've got these 2 tiers of players. You've got those that are starting and doing okay, you've got those who aren't starting but are also doing okay. So with Isak you have Wilson in the wings who could get starts over him, and both are good options. Same applies to, say, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, etc. Gordon is preferred to start, but Barnes could come in, and so on. I mean, what do you feel that trying to guess which of Wilson and Isak is too early at the moment? I'd need to see some Champions League games first myself.
Yeah, it feels like it's a bit risky now. We don't know. Isak Champions League, Wilson Premier League, that could be a thing. And then if you've got Isak, you're absolutely gutted because you want him for these good fixtures. And if he's on the bench, and for Sheffield United and Burnley, we want the starters for that one. And I just don't know yet. And I think even if you ask the Newcastle fans yet, they're not quite sure how Eddie Howe's going to play the Champions League. And the same goes for players like Kieran Trippier. He's probably going to sit out one of the next few games. And so can still do well, of course. But it's quite... I guess we're quite lucky that Newcastle play Brentford this week, so I don't feel there's a massive urge to get them now. I think we can wait a week. They play AC Milan in the Champions League, see what the minutes are like in that, and then make the move next week. I think I'm kind of okay with that. But I think if you the guy the boy or girl who messaged, they've got Isak already. Is that right?
Yeah, I would assume so. Hold Isak. Yeah, hold Isak. So you presumably already has.
Yeah,
Isak.
I would.
Yeah, just hold. Just keep hold. Yeah. No need, and then find out. We won't, and we can't tell you this week because we'll know after the match against Brentford and a bit more information about Champions League. Zubin asks, would you do Eze to Sterling on Bomo this week? Well, similar applies with Brentford, as in Newcastle, you can probably do without them this week. And the same applies for Brentford against Newcastle. So Bomo's not urgent. If I was to get one of Sterling on Bomo, it would be in Bomo long term. He's better value, and I'd want him just perhaps forever. But would I swap Eze out for any of them? No. Eze's got Aston Villa away, but then he has Fulham at home, the worst defence. So the minute you get Eze out against Aston Villa, and he could get something in that, he might do. You're going to want him back game week 6 because that's a great fixture. I'm wildly predicting the scout picks for game week 6, but I'd be surprised if Eze is not in the conversation for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's just got off the mark, hasn't he, before the international break against Wolves. Fulham at home, then Forest at home a couple of weeks after that. Good fixtures. Could be on penalties too, Eze. We don't know yet, but he might be. So, I don't think there's an urgent need to go on Bomo or Sterling this week. I think they're fine to play. I'm playing them both in my team. But if I didn't own them, I wouldn't be massively worried about that, I don't think. So...
Ted Wilson asks top 3 defender buys. That's tricky because I can't trust anyone for clean sheets at the moment. But I mean, let's have a look at. I'll put a table up, the worst defences, and flip it around. Look at the bottom. So who are the best defences? Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford, Crystal Palace. So the top 3 defenders, I would say, if you got a chance of a clean sheet, Man City. So someone like Diaz, Saliba, for Arsenal, Chilwell at Chelsea, Henry or Flecken in goal for Brentford, and then Gahey or Johnston if we think he's going to keep his place. I mean, these are the best ones, but there's attacking ones. There's Stupinan at Brighton, not now, but when the fixtures turn, it's very attacking. So, I mean, there's a lot of choice, but at the same time, not much choice.
Yeah, and I think that given the fixtures that Newcastle have had, to see them where they are in that table is actually quite encouraging when you consider they've played Man City, they've played Brighton, they've played Liverpool, they've played Villa.
Yeah.
Given the fixtures that they've got coming out, we don't know about Botman, but there's Shah there for 5 million, or share, however you say it. And so he's there if you don't want to go all the way up to Trippier, if you're a bit concerned about him. So I think he's really good. I think Spurs defenders for this week are good, but you probably need to bench them in the 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
And then a couple of players who have been injured, but we don't know the status. Players like Alexander-Arnold, I thought looked brilliant against Villa. I don't think anybody's going to go there just yet, but just be aware of him. And Alex Moreno as well from my team, Villa, hopefully coming back from injury soon. Villa's fixtures get really good in game week 8. So there's a couple more players might come onto the watch list in the next couple of weeks. But
definitely.
Yeah, I think everybody that you said, Joe, are really good picks then, and maybe add Newcastle to that.
So I think probably the best answer to the top 3 defender buys is get the top 5, because you will rotate them at the moment. So I like Estupinan, but I'm not going to play him every week. Rotate him and look at those sort of rotations. So the doggy is a great option this week, but bad the next 2, then he becomes good again. So who can you play in game week 6 and 7 in his place? So Estupinan could be that person, for example. So Estupinan, the doggy could be a nice rotation and so on. So there's quite a few there. And as you said about Aston Villa, the likes of Cash and Moreno, these are definitely on my radar. And they play Crystal Palace at home next, but then they got Chelsea and Brighton, so that's tricky for clean sheets, I would imagine. Then, as you said, game week 8 they got Wolves. It gets
really good then, and it gives us a bit of time as well to see how, because Cash versus Moreno will be a big question once he's fit, and we don't yet know how Emre is going to play it. I think Moreno will be the more advanced of the 2. But there's Mings is out now, so we've got Pau Torres who's come in, and there's just a little bit of uncertainty and to see how it goes. So we're actually, again, Villa's fixtures, we're quite fortunate in the way we don't need to rush into it now. 3 weeks to analyse it, see where Alex Moreno is, and then make a decision maybe ahead of game week 8.
We've got time for a couple more questions. One I'll just address now. FPL Gem asked something that someone else asked last week. What our current ranks are. Well, we're not telling because it's irrelevant what our current ranks are, especially after 4 game weeks. But also, we're not that kind of show. We're looking at next week, and but if it's an opportunity for me to apologise for last week. I did say that we had 15 top 10k ranks between me and Tom there. That is, of course, very inaccurate. We have 16, so do apologise for that, FPL Gem. And the final question is from Nevis. Son or Maddison to captain? He's really stuck on this one. So we have sort of touched on this as well. So if you own both, who would you captain?
I think I'll go Son.
Okay.
And I think I would, just because I think that we don't know, but we think he might be on penalties, being the captain. Hopefully you'll get 60, 70 minutes of playing through the middle if there's nothing in these pictures which have emerged, and he looks like he's fit and he's healthy. And I just think coming off the back of that hat-trick, I think I would be, as a captain, I think Maddison's a really good pick, but I think I would just favour Son, I think, in that situation. What about you, Jay?
Well, me, as a dullard and also as a Maddison owner, I would go for Maddison because I just think he'll be more involved. So whilst there's not a sexy hat-trick in him, but he might get more points just through sheer assists and bonus and perhaps a goal.
As soon as he gets an attack in return, he's probably going to be in bonus in that kind of game, isn't he? Because he's going to see so much of the ball. So,
but my actual answer to that question is neither Haaland, because he plays West Ham, and I think that's an okay fixture. Could be proved wrong, but good luck to all those that do captain Son or Maddison. I know there will be a few in the community doing that, and so good luck with that, because it takes a bit of bravery to go against Haaland, but it could pay off well. Before we go, just want to say thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live chat, and do remember to press that like button if you like the content, and even if you don't like it, just press it anyway. And do subscribe to Fantasy Football Scout on YouTube, but also wherever you receive your podcasts, so you can keep up to date with all our latest content. As ever, Tom, thanks a lot for joining me. Good luck with the game week. Good luck with your very decision to tweak your perfect team somehow.
Well, we've still got internationals to play, haven't we? It could suddenly, within 24 hours, I could have a couple of fires to put out. England are playing tonight, aren't they, against Scotland, and plenty of South American internationals and things. So we don't know. It looks good now, but we're not at deadline yet. So
Indeed. But thanks for joining me. I'll see you again next week. Good luck, everyone, for game week 5, and good luck with the rest of the season. See you soon.